Look, there's a synergy between sort of socially prominent women or beautiful women and gays. There just is, okay? There's just and the women like it because the guy's not going to be hitting on them, and they consider them more sophisticated often and aware of the things that they are concerned with. So it was natural for them to be that for those friendships to develop.
Want to listen to this episode ad free? Head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and get a free trial for the ITBR professor level. And you can actually watch this episode as a video episode as well. While you're at it, did you know that on Spotify, we now have a subscription service for $10 a month? You get access to all of our ad free episodes plus any bonus episodes. So make sure that you rate, review, and follow the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And follow Mary DePippi's show, True Crime in Academia, at True Crime in Academia. Thank you all for your support. And without further ado, here's today's episode.
This episode is brought to you by Snapple. Welcome to the Snapple Market Auditory Experience. Close your eyes. Imagine you're walking into your neighborhood store. You make your way to the back and reach for your favorite Snapple flavor. You can't wait. You take a sip. Whoa, that's a lot of flavor. What flavor are you holding? Now open your eyes and check out Snapple.com to find ridiculously flavorful Snapple near you.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and when I'm not here on the podcast, I am consulting with small businesses, undergraduate students, graduate students, podcasters, and those in media. So if you're curious about the work that I've done with my consultation services, you could just type me in on Google, Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and you'll see a few reviews pop up. I've worked on college admission essays for undergraduate students. I've revamped and expanded a small business's social media marketing campaign right here in Port Jefferson, New York. And I've also worked on a graduate student's thesis for her physician assistant program. So if you want to seek me out or inquire about my consultation services, just email me. That's the easiest way to reach me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. And 'tis the season for college admission essays, both undergraduate and graduate, thesis writing, dissertation writing. Do you want to create a podcast and you don't know where to begin? Media work, how to open a TikTok, how to start creating videos on TikTok, what to do with your Instagram. All of that I have done. So just reach out to me. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I'm really just eager, excited to pick my New York Times best-selling author's mind. I'm joined with Laurence Leamer. He is the writer of over five New York Times bestseller books. He also wrote an off-Broadway play. I also have to ask him about his website, the About the Author section, where you find out that his Mar-a-Lago book actually got him banned for life from the Donald Trump Club. So I'm sure there's a story behind that as well. If you don't know, he just wrote Hitchcock's Blondes, which I actually want to start with him because I feel like it'll connect us into Capote's Women, a true story of love, betrayal, and a swan song for an era, which
the new Capote versus the Swans series takes all of its material from his book. So, welcome to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, Laurence.
Thanks for having me.
So, I have to just start with this intriguing story about Mar-a-Lago and what led you to being banned from the club. Was it because of what you reveal in the book?
Yeah, he didn't, he never really liked me. I would go to Mar-a-Lago a lot, and I wasn't a member. I had all kinds of friends around me. He'd come over to the table, there'd be 6 people at the table, and he'd talk to everybody else, and me, he totally ignored me. It was kind of weird. I think he kind of knew I was a journalist, and he kind of had a bad feeling about what might happen. So I wrote the book. He didn't like the book, and he banned me for life.
Wow.
It's one of the highest honors of my life.
Well, and I was going to say, you're definitely a journalist, a cultural critic. Your voice has really transcended in the sense that I remember reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laurence, but you really had this passion for like just finding the truth, being very investigative with culture and art, and you really didn't want to be told how to do journalism. Like you really wanted to find the authenticity yourself. Like I remember there's a story about you having a boss and you really learned quickly in Newsweek that you didn't really want someone telling you what to investigate or how to exactly like go about it, like kind of feeding you stories.
No, I thought I just, I remember because I was talking to somebody. There's a guy called Ed Klein, who's a foreign editor, and I was a writer, and he's a miserable person. If you mention his name, he's just really nobody likes. Anyway, so when he would close his door on Thursday or Friday, 2 days, and you write your story, that meant something bad had happened. And he closes the door, and he throws a pencil at me across the room and says, "When the hell are you going to learn how to do the coup story?" And the coup story is this formula, basically. The tanks surround the palace in the early morning hours, and you just write it that way. It's a total formula. And I just wasn't any good at that.
Mm. So, like, what's your lesson and advice for young journalists or writers out there who've really entered into freelance writing? Like, do you think that I know it's an arduous journey? I mean, I'm a freelance, um, you know, podcaster, media voice, and there's ups and downs, but the freedom of your expression and creativity, I mean, there's such joy in that. I mean, like, what advice do you have for those of us who are the younger generation here?
Well, one thing, and it sounds like a cliche, but I think you have to be very honest. I think it's extremely important. It's important to what you write. It's important to how people treat you. And you get a reputation for being honest, and it does great things for you. That I
Mm,
would do, and just the kind of detail. I think so many people are lazy, and I don't think people say they want to write. They don't want to write. They want to have written. They want to go on the book tour. They want to
mm,
sign the books. Do they want to sit there an hour and after hour? Do they want to go over things endlessly? They're not going to do it. Many people, but you've got to do that. You just got, and you have a sense of detail. I mean, John Leonard, who was the reviewer at the New York Times, was a great man. He reviewed one of my books and he said that Leamer is great in small things. And some of my friends thought that was an insulting thing to say, but I took it as a high compliment. Maybe I'm not great in small things, but I'm good in small things. And uh, that's it. It's the tiny detail that tells a story. The same thing in fiction. I mean, Dr. Rose, the Book of Daniel, is one of my favorite novels. It's about the Rosenbergs, the family that takes over the Rosenberg boys after their parents are executed. And they're a family who they described in the New Yorker. Years ago, the New Yorker, they would have this manila sleeve that the New Yorker was mailed to you every week. And describes the living room of their house. There are like 10 New Yorkers in their sleeves on the table. So what does that say? First of all, it says they have intellectual pretensions to have the New Yorker at that point. Uh, they didn't have time to read it, but they weren't dishonest. Somebody else would just rip those sleeves off, pretend they were reading it. So in that one little line, you tell so much, and that's true of so many details.
mm. Well, so what led you really into, I mean, Truman Capote and Capote's women, I feel, do you think all of the writing you had done before 2021 when this comes out with the Kennedys and all of your political writing and investigative cultural critiques, did that really help you understand Truman Capote's world?
Yeah, I think it does. I think, each one, and the great thing about this kind of life is you're piggybacking and living many lives. You're entering these lives and learning about them. And it's just fascinating to me. I'm never bored.
Hmm. Well, why does Truman Capote, you think, fascinate so many of us right now? Like, why, even before Capote's women, I know you have a wonderful review from Melanie Benjamin, who did the Swans of Fifth
Yeah,
Avenue.
exactly. Yeah.
And then, even I'm sure you'll tell us the story, which I'm excited to hear, how FX eventually comes to this realization that they're going to put together Capote versus the Swans as a TV series and look to your book
Well,
for,
okay,
yeah,
okay. Just one aside about Melanie Benjamin.
yeah.
In my experience, writers are either overwhelmingly generous or too generous, or the most selfish SOBs who've ever walked this earth. And Melanie Benjamin, look, here I'm coming. I'm writing a nonfiction version of the novel she wrote. Believe me, a lot of writers say, screw you, I'm not going to help you. But she didn't do that. She read it and she gave me a wonderful blurb that was very helpful to me.
Well, and I have to say, um, I'm glad you addressed that, Laurence, because I think it's just wonderful to see that collaborative spirit. Because a part of me was thinking, um, was he going into territory that she had already delved
Right,
into
right,
in
right,
the fictive world? But
right.
they are two different texts. Like they are different orbits of Truman Capote's life in a way of understanding his psychology. Um, fiction and nonfiction
No,
occupy
definitely.
different spaces. Um, but yeah, so what was it about you think right now? Is it just this fascination with an enigmatic figure like Truman Capote and how he had all these secrets and how he kind of lives this openly gay life? I mean, that's what I'm fascinated with in your book is it's not like he's really hiding in the closet. And it's actually very surprising that all these
At
women
that
know
time,
he's gay at that time.
at
Mhm.
that time, no, it was a very daring thing that he did. And, I'm just finishing a book now on Andy Warhol.
Oh,
And,
wow.
there's another example of that. But it was people forget how dangerous it was to be gay, and
Are you a fan of LGBTQ plus books, plays, movies, TV shows? Well, then I have the magazine for you. It's called the Gay and Lesbian Review. The GNLR is a bi monthly magazine of history, culture, and politics that publishes essays in a wide range of disciplines, as well as a slew of reviews of books, plays, and movies. Each issue brings you consistently intelligent, lively, thought provoking articles focused on a unifying theme, and it brings together the leading minds on the topic. So I just had on Dr. Richard Schneider Jr., the founder and editor in chief of the GNLR. For the GNLR's 30th anniversary, happy birthday, GNLR. Dr. Richard Schneider talked about their special volume called Outer Appearances, More Faces from the Annals of the GNLR, illustrations by Charles Heffling. They cover current LGBTQ artists such as Harvey Firestein, Melissa Etheridge, Alan Cumming, James Whiteside, Alison Bechdel, and even David Sedaris, and of course, many others like Stephen Sondheim. There's even a supplemental issue that comes with your commemorative volume. And Andrew Halloran, the writer of Dancer from the Dance, he reviews a book called Morris about E.M. Forster's Morris, written by one of our ITBR guests, David Grevin. So we can't wait for you all to experience this beautiful 30th anniversary GNLR issue. Have you heard some of my GNLR interviews, including Dr. Andrew Lear's discussion about male-male love in ancient Greek society and Ignacio Darnad opening and blasting the closet door in the queer male art world? Well, definitely make sure you listen to them after this episode. Head to glreview.org. Make sure you subscribe to their magazine. You'll see there's a section that says subscribe at the top. Enter the promo code ITBR50. That's ITBR50 to receive 50% off. 50% off any print or digital subscription. Enjoy your reading. So you all know that I am such a fan of musical theater and classic movies. So I can't wait for you all to listen to one of my good friends' podcasts. It's called That Old Gay Classic Cinema, hosted by Christian Garcia. It's a podcast that looks at classic cinema films that we know and love. And he was inspired by Turner Classic Movies and The Great Movie Ride. Remember that amazing ride where the Wicked Witch of the West rose up in a burst of flame in Disney? That was one of my favorite rides. I'm so sad it closed. So, while looking at classic films, Christian is so excited to look at it with a queer lens. And he brings on friends like myself to talk about all of these films. I was on the first episode when we discussed The Sound of Music. I've been on an episode of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. He just released an episode about the Philadelphia Story. He's done Meet Me in St. Louis, Sweet Charity, Psycho, Mary Poppins, Hello Dolly. He had on Down the Yellow Brick Road hosts and the Garland Gab hosts to talk about The Wizard of Oz. So make sure that you listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema on Apple and Spotify and follow him on TikTok and Instagram at That Old Gay Classic Cinema. Okay, start watching the classic movies and make sure you listen to Christian's podcasts. Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby. And when I'm not here on the podcast, I am consulting with small businesses, undergraduate students, graduate students, podcasters, and those in media. So if you're curious about the work that I've done with my consultation services, you could just type me in on Google, Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and you'll see a few reviews pop up. I've worked on college admission essays for undergraduate students. I've revamped and expanded a small business's social media marketing campaign right here in Port Jefferson, New York. And I've also worked on a graduate student's thesis for her physician assistant program. So if you want to seek me out or inquire about my consultation services, just email me. That's the easiest way to reach me at ivorytowerboilerroom@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. And 'tis the season for college admission essays, both undergraduate and graduate, thesis writing, dissertation writing. Do you want to create a podcast and you don't know where to begin? Media work, how to open a TikTok, how to start creating videos on TikTok, what to do with your Instagram. All of that I have done. So just reach out to me.
Young gay men left the small towns of America because they weren't safe there, headed to the big cities. And that's exactly what Truman Capote did.
Yeah, well, and I was even going to ask, did you think that researching for Capote's women and trying to understand what he's occupying in terms of being so open as a gay man and a writer and an art critic, artist, what have you, did it take opportunities away from him? Like, did you see a record of any opportunities that, where
Oh,
the
no, I mean,
carpet was
gosh,
pulled out?
he was the most famous writer in America. I mean, what more could he have? And, in Cold Blood, he reads this article in the New York, a small story in the New York Times about this murder in Kansas of this family, and he doesn't know anything about that world. It's a world where he probably won't be welcome, but he has the guts to go out there and do that and tell that story.
Yeah. And do you think that just like how did you even process what I find so compelling at the beginning, and you're interweaving his childhood throughout the book,
Right.
is this trauma. I mean, it was such a rocky relationship he has with his mother,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
like just
Yeah.
being sent to that military school.
Right,
It's
right. No,
um
no.
but yeah. How is that do you think that's a lot of his um kind of fuels him to become the center of the attention of this society?
And realize he didn't have a college education. He starts out writes his first novel when he's 23, which has gay themes in it, a controversial thing. And there he is, he's a famous man at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, what attracts him to these women? Like why, you know, do you think Babe Haley is really the center that holds the glue for everything? Because that's kind of how the TV show is
Oh,
imagining.
look, there's a synergy between sort of socially prominent women or beautiful women and gays. There just is, okay? There's just and the women like it because the guy's not going to be hitting on them, and they consider them more sophisticated often and aware of the things that they are concerned with. So it was natural for them to be that those friendships to develop.
Yeah. Would you call these women progressive, like politically?
No, not really. No, no. I mean, they didn't. Gosh, you think what politics did they have? No, not really.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess Lee Radziwill is a particular political
Well, because of her sister.
because of her sister. Yes.
But
So,
yeah. But no, I think that he he had to be an entertainer. That's part of it too. He and he knew that. He had to be the entertainer at the dinner parties. The moment he didn't do that, he was finished. It's a cold world, the American upper class.
mm, it kind of seems like he's almost Shakespeare's clown in a way. And he's the jester, like you're saying.
Yeah,
He's
that's the role
almost
he
like a
did.
talk show host
No,
nowadays.
exactly. That's why he was indeed so good on talk shows. He
Mm,
understood it.
yeah, he kind of reminds me of Andy Cohen from The Real Housewives. And
Right,
they're
right,
yeah, they're kind of saying like these women were the original Real Housewives of
right.
entertainment. Um, but you know, when did you start or have you watched the show? Like, has that been an
Oh, are
interesting
you kidding? Of
process?
course I watched it.
Yeah, so
And
what do you think of it so far and how
okay,
they put it together?
okay. First of all, it Robbie Batts, who wrote it, okay, and it's artistically daring,
Mhm.
and I think, look, television, I don't know why we would call it television. It's not television, like turning your set to ABC, NBC, stuff like that. This is streaming is something totally different. And it has the gravitas of Hollywood films. These things like this, like Capote versus the Swans, or The Crown, or The White Lotus. They're the whole level of a film, okay? And this is exactly you spend $80 million on this thing, and it's very unconventional. It goes back on itself. It's not paint by number, and that I respect. I wasn't too happy with a lot of the changes that were made factually in it, some of which I think were unnecessary. But hey, that's his choice. It's his project, and in fact, when I was on the set, he apologized to me before he said, "I apologize for all the changes I've made in your book," and I said, "You don't have to apologize to me. You're a dramatist. That's what you do."
Mm.
So I
Well,
admire that, and I hope that because this is done so well, there'll be more series that take these chances. And I hope the audience and these dumb critics will understand that.
yeah. Well, I agree with you. I feel like artistically, I love that they're playing around with black and white,
Right,
noir.
everything.
It's
Right.
so
Chronology,
interesting.
whatever.
It is. It's so, it feels so stylized and it's
Right.
exciting to see a
Yeah.
show like that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and these women are just, it's the top of their game in terms of the actors that they're bringing to the table.
I went to the premiere in New York which was started at the Museum of Modern Art and then went from there to the Plaza Hotel. And I met all of them. And first of all, the idea that actors are stupid, which a lot of people think, they just read these lines as stupid. These women are extremely intelligent. They're very literate. They got totally into these characters, and plus they were so nice, so kind of modest, and they do this for the right reason. They do the reason that I write because I love writing. It's not to be a show off and come out when your book comes out and get some attention. They just love doing this.
Mm, mm. Well, and do you feel like, I know you're not a director, but do you feel like one of the women, even when you were writing your book, was one female story more difficult to tell? Like whether it be just trying to find information about her
Well,
or put her
my
together.
problem is, I think one writes. You write better if you like your characters, okay? And
Mhm.
I didn't like Lee Roswell. Okay. First of all, because I'm a big fan of Jackie Kennedy. I think her courage after the assassination of her husband and how she went to New York and became an editor, and not just with a name on the door, but was a real editor, and how she wanted to be a mother above anything. And she was a great mother. I admire her so much. That her sister was jealous of her is just appalling to me, despite all that she had. So I didn't like her. So maybe that's not one of my. So that one it was hard because I didn't like her, but I just found them fascinating. Each one in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and how much, what kind of medium did you turn to a lot for your research? Were you looking at letters? Were you like trying to listen to interviews
Well,
from ancient
I was
women?
now the truth can be told. I wrote it during the pandemic. So everything was shut down. The Library of Congress that had Pamela Harriman's papers, they were there, Truman Capote's papers, and the New York Public Library, that was shut down. I couldn't travel. I wanted to go to Italy to go to the Agnelli's in Turin. I couldn't do that. So boy, was I limited. So it was mainly books and letters and things like that, and what I could find on the internet. But it was really tough for that way.
Yeah. Well, and what was the book you had also written? I know this was earlier, but you had written a book about Palm Beach Society, right?
Did I ever? That's why da 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 da. I am banned not only from Mar-a-Lago but from the Palm Beach Daily News, the local newspaper. They didn't like the book. They had an editorial meeting and said my name would never appear in the paper, and they're serious about this. The series, was a natural for them. I mean, two of these women lived in Palm Beach. In the second hour of the series, the Thanksgiving dinner takes place in Palm Beach, but not a mention of it in the paper because if they wrote about it, they have to mention my name, and they won't do that.
Mm. Have you seen Palm Royale, this comedy
I
show?
can't stand it. It is so appallingly bad. And now they're on the subject of the Shiny Show, the Palm Beach Daily News. They're doing it every day. They're so incredibly stupid and inept not to realize this isn't about Palm Beach. It's a total joke, whatever it is, but they're just promoting it.
Mm-mm. So you
The
feel like,
Palm Beach is a complex place.
yeah, so you feel like the uh comedy show is not really understanding what Palm Beach, like it's actually not a representation of Palm Beach is.
Of
Uh,
what this elite world is like. I mean, some people say to me, "How can you write about these people?" Well, Edith Wharton did fairly well writing about this class of people, and so did Proust. Why not write about it? They deserve the same attention as other people. And some people say this is a guy writes about the rich and the powerful. Well, I've written all kinds of. I've written about I was a coal miner. I wrote about that coal mining world. I've written about mountain climbing, written all kinds of wrote about the underground press. So this is just one area of one of many areas that interest me.
mm.
But
Well,
stupid for
and
my career. For my career, I should have been James Patterson and basically write the same story over and over again. But no.
Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about one of our ITBR sponsors, Broadview Press. Broadview Press is an independent academic publisher in the humanities that produces high quality, pedagogically useful books for use in university and college classrooms. They publish mainly in English studies, writing, philosophy, and history. They are always publishing with an eye towards diversity, building a strong list of titles from women, people of color, and authors from other marginalized groups. If you haven't heard my Broadview Press interviews, you need to. Recently, I just had on Dr. Shannon Day, who talked about her book, Beyond the Binary, Thinking About Sex and Gender. And in the summer, I had on Dr. Jason Holt, who gave us all a comprehensive history of what it means to be a philosopher who studies sporting culture. And of course, we went back to ancient Greek, literature, mythology, history to look at the roots of athleticism. And last year, I had on Dr. Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock, who's actually going to be coming on the podcast soon to give his thoughts on the new Fall of the House of Usher Netflix series. He talked all about pop culture for beginners. And Broadview Press is offering an exclusive discount because of our sponsorship. So head to broadviewpress.com where you're going to see such a wide range of literature. Use the code Ivory Tower, IVORYTOWER for 20% off site-wide all of their books. Again, it's broadviewpress.com. Enjoy your reading. I am here in Port Jefferson, New York, on Long Island, in one of my favorite stores. It is the Soapbox NY, a Bath and Body boutique. I'm here with one of the co-owners, Janine. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Andrew. How are you? Thank you.
Good. So I know you have many winter scents to walk us through. So let's
Yes.
get started.
This is from company Michelle Design Works, another one of our favorites. Room spray that you can use any room in your house, just kind of freshens up the room a bit.
And what is this by Michelle Design
Also by
Works?
Michelle Design Works is Winter Blooms, one of their new scents this holiday season. It's great. It's a hand wash. You can use it in your kitchen or your bathroom.
And then here's something to follow it up with.
Exactly. It's a hand and body lotion.
And then what is this beautiful decorative candle here?
One of our favorites that we actually sell
Mhm.
all year round because it's so popular. This is the scent of Fraser Fir by Times.
I think I'm becoming addicted to it.
Yes, I think you are because you already own one, I believe.
I own one, and it is a decorative candle for me because I'm about to open it, but it's just in such
I know the packaging
beautiful
is, I don't know what's
package.
better, the packaging or the scent.
I'm
but
using
it's
it as a
wonderful.
holiday decoration. So
Cool.
I'll get to the candle eventually,
Yes, you
everyone.
will. But it's wonderful because with Times and their Fraser Fir, not only do they carry the candles, but they also make it in the scents in the diffuser, in soap, the hand lotion, the hand soap. It's just a great line and a great scent.
So, Janine, how can everyone out there get their hands on your hand and body and even pajama products?
Well, we'd be more than happy to see you in our shop. We're located at 18 Chandler Square in Port Jefferson Village. You could always call us to place an order. We're happy to ship to you. Our phone number is 631-509-1424. You can place an order on our website, soapboxny.com. And you could also find us on Instagram or TikTok at the Soapbox NY.
So many options.
Mhm.
I can't wait for all of you out there to just enjoy what I love so much about the Soapbox NY. So, with
Yeah,
that,
thank you so much.
happy winter, everyone.
Yeah, just do a little pastiche. Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
James, I would have a hard time to distinguish one Patterson novel from another.
Right, but that's what the audience wants. He knows that's what they want.
Yeah, well, usually those aren't the writers that are remembered and taught, but we shall see. Books like yours, I think, will definitely hit college and syllabi faster than a James Patterson novel.
Yeah.
What I do find interesting too with, this world you're exploring, whether it be Palm Beach, whether it be Manhattan, Long Island. I've been on Long Island for 10 years, but I'm moving back to Jersey. But there's a lot of like Jersey, society as well. Do you just think this whole rotating around these geographic areas, is it really just to be seen? Like, what do you think is the impetus of like just continuing, especially in the 50s and 60s? Like, why were these families so insistent that they had to be part of such a closed off group of people?
Well, look, it's a way to maintain a cultural elite, to have uh, these customs and speech and clothes that the average person can't have, right? And they think they're inferior to this. Okay, I mean, this is about Andy Warhol. I mean, he goes to this dinner party and there are like 4 or 5 forks and knives on each side. He doesn't know what the hell to do with that, so he doesn't eat anything. He says, "I'm not hungry," rather than to make a mistake.
Well, so do you feel like Truman Capote was actually very um comfortable in all of these environments, or like you said, he felt like he had to put on a shtick to try to
I
just
think I think it takes several generations.
Hmm.
My grandfather was a chauffeur, and my mother went to the University of Chicago, which was, was a very unusual thing for a woman from that background. And she always had that insecurity. She's a highly intelligent, fascinating person, but she always had that insecurity because she wasn't born this way.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and some of these women, I remember specifically, um, I know her name was it'll come to me, but she's born in Northern California in Salinas, Slim, right?
Slims,
Uh,
cheap, yeah.
Slims. So she really is not from that elite background.
No, but she doesn't come from a poor family. Her
Mhm.
father's a successful businessman, and that they had money, not the top, but she certainly wasn't poor.
Mhm. So she didn't necessarily have the blue blood name, but she was able to um, infiltrate into the society, right? I mean, it's a little different. It seems
Exactly.
it's different than like Edith Wharton's Gilded Age, like where you really did have the family names, and it is much more. It's harder to break through society. It kind of seems like money talks in this 50s and 60s world.
Well, it talks now in Palm Beach. You come down
Mhm.
here, you just have your money, and you get some to charity. You chair a charity and get your name in the picture in the paper, and well, you're in society, whatever society means anymore.
Yeah, like I was going to ask you, what is like where do these husbands, wives, like even if there was a Truman Capote running around in this society and gossiping to the manicurist about,
Right.
XYZ woman, where do they exist right now? Like, do you actually think there is a group, or do you think it's really kind of changed because of
I wish there
yeah.
was this wonderful place, this elite place with these incredible, beautiful people, intelligent conversations. I'd do anything, Frank, I'd do anything to get into it, but it doesn't exist. There's no such place,
Mm.
right?
So do
Nothing.
you think that's why there's such a nostalgia for these kinds of histories, because people they're trying to remember a time when there was a group that dictated taste, just because I feel like taste now is on social media, or just like things are always ever
No,
changing. Yeah.
and what people forget about this is these women were quite famous. There was the columnists that wrote about clothes and design were were syndicated widely, and people knew about this. In 1962, I worked for 3 months the Watchir, Iowa Patriot Chronicle. It was a weekly newspaper, and in the teenagers in high school, the young men wore jeans and white t-shirts, and they wanted to become farmers like their fathers. The young women, they went to Sioux City and got knockoffs of the clothes the Swans wore for 10 or 15 bucks, these dresses.
Hmm.
They didn't want to be farmers' wives. They wanted a different life. So you knew, so it was a pre-feminist move on their part to move beyond that traditional woman's role.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, a woman who actually really fascinates me, just when you tell her story, but how she's brought to life by Demi Moore is Anne Woodward. I mean, I feel like it's not every day where a woman actually shoots her husband, that it's almost kind of like Chicago the musical in a way that
No, but
she.
that's one of the things that's wrong in the series, frankly. Anne
Mm,
Woodward, look, what happened? Anne Woodward was this poor woman. She comes to New York. She marries this rich guy, and they have a troubled marriage. And they have this mansion in Long Island, and there's a robber. There are a lot of burglaries around, so they had guns in their separate bedrooms, and so he comes he comes out. She thinks she hears a noise. She goes in the hallway, and he's standing there, and she shoots him with a shotgun. Well, it was a bird gun, okay? So these little tiny pellets, 99 times out of 100, he wouldn't have been hardly been hurt. But the one little pellet went to his brain and he died. There was a there was a later they caught the burglar. The burglar had been in that house that evening, okay? And so Truman takes that and he not only has her murdering him, but he has her taking in the shower, shooting him in the shower and the blood in the shower, uh, uh, and uh, and so when she he in veiled terms you write about in the excerpt in Esquire, the Colt Boss 65, she commits suicide. So I consider him a virtual murderer for that. Now in the
mm,
series, she kills him, okay, but it's just not true. And
mm,
Truman
mm.
knew that because Truman had all the police records. He knew she didn't kill him, but they'd had a falling out, and he wanted to get even with her.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how influential he is, like how taking up the pen and spreading, gossip, or in this case, libel, really can create history. Like it doesn't really matter what was fact or fiction, it's who has the power of the pen. Like that Truman Capote really did sway an audience.
Yeah, he
And
definitely.
it's fascinating that,
Right,
a writer could have that much power.
right.
Um, I mean, it excites me because I feel like writers right now have lost power in a way.
Oh, that's
Uh,
for sure.
yeah. So another one I'm just curious about, because she's only dealt with, like you deal deeper into the nuances, which is why everyone should read Capote's Women if they're, you know, eyes are glued to the series, is Joanne Carson,
Yeah.
because it seems like she really has this affection for him, like not just because of being he's an entertainer, but because of his actual identity. Like she's completely fine that he's gay, like she's very open, it seems. So like, what did you find fascinating when you were looking into her life?
Well, I was friendly with Joanne Carson.
Ah,
And I'm part of the story. And my wife said I should have written that last chapter in the book in the first person. And
mm,
she's right, because if I'd written in the first person, I might have been a character in the series. So I was writing a book about Johnny Carson. Well, first of all, Joanne Carson died. Truman died in her arms
ah,
in 1984, and he was cremated. She sent half the ashes back to Jack Dumphy, his long-term lover, who was in the series, and kept all this for half, and said that Truman had told her he wanted to do that. I don't believe that. She just wanted half the ashes. Anyway,
mm,
flash forward to 1988, in October, or early October, or maybe it was a little bit. And she calls me and says that Truman, before he died, had done a tape how that she could do the 1988 counterpart of the black and white ball. And she was going to do it. It would be the greatest party of the era, and she was inviting every star in Hollywood. But she said, "But you can't go, Larry, because if Johnny learns I'm talking to you, I'm going to lose my alimony." So and it was on Halloween, 1988. That morning she called and said, "I've changed my mind, Larry. You can come to the party." So I should have known something was wrong, or I wouldn't be invited. Anyway, so I go to but you got to dress in costume, and for nobody can see you. So I went to the costume store, and the only costume there was the executioner, the black hood and everything, and plastic black axe and stuff. So I dressed in that. My wife wore a pretty dress and a mask. We go to the party. We come up the driveway. It was the minivan brought you up there, like 40 paparazzi there, waiting for the movie stars coming to this great party. Only there were no movie stars because they were afraid if they showed up, they wouldn't be in the night show. So we go in. It's kind of a pathetic party. But at midnight, everybody's supposed to take off their mask. Well, of course, I couldn't take off my mask. We leave. 10 minutes later, she comes out of the kitchen screaming, "There's been a thief. That Truman's ashes have been stolen. Uh, his manuscript has been stolen, and jewelry has been stolen." And everybody said, "We know who the thief is. It's the masked man." So People magazine did a big story in that week about it. And Truman, and then she a few days later called and said, "The thief has returned the ashes." Of course, she just made this up, and she's hysterical. So I went over there to kind of help her, and we drive all around LA with Truman in my lap. And we're talking to him like he's still alive, trying to decide what to do with his ashes. And I suddenly remember the Westwood Memorial Chapel. I go there, and there are these big marble crypts, but they're all taken. And the magician says that they're taken, but the Kennedys are not paid for Mr. Peter Lawford. We'll take Mr. Lawford out of there and put Truman there. So she cuts a deal. She can't stand to lose half of her ashes. She pours half of them out, adds her dog ashes, and puts them there. It says Truman Capote, but it's actually a quarter Truman Capote and 100% of her dog. When she dies, they can auction off the ashes, the quarter of the ashes. They weren't sure that they should do it. And then they remember that a few years back, Sotheby's had auctioned off Napoleon's penis. And
Wow.
yeah, and they got only $7,000 for it, which for the shriveled penis it was. That sounds about right. So anyway, they auctioned off the Truman's ashes and got $48,000 for it.
Wow, what a story. I mean, thank you for regaling me and everyone listening to this out there. But I think like as we're just wrapping up, Laurence, like I know your recent book is Hitchcock's Blondes, and I'm just
Right.
curious, do you feel like there is a connection? I mean, Hitchcock is different, of course. I mean, being attracted to these women that he's hired, but do you feel like there is something of the enigmatic or the obsessive nature that does he share anything with Truman Capote, Hitchcock and Capote? Is there
Well,
any connection?
first of all, what I'm writing is a trilogy about creative geniuses,
Mhm,
male creative geniuses, and the women around them. Okay, so that's
mhm,
coming out. Yes, they're obsessive. You don't get to reach this level lying in a hammock. I mean,
mhm.
all three of these men are obsessive, and Hitchcock as much as any of it. And again, the detail. I come back to the detail. Hitchcock watched over every tiny detail. The music, the clothes, the editing. He's there. He's there for every single miss. He misses nothing.
Mm. Wait, so who is going to be the third man in these series?
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol. Okay, so we have Capote, we have Hitchcock, and we have Warhol. And
It's coming out a year, next June of next year.
oh,
I'm,
wonderful.
excuse me, May 6th of next year.
May 6th of next year. Okay. So any word if Hitchcock's Blondes is going to be a feud type
Well,
show?
Ryan Murphy has optioned it,
Mm,
and he at the premiere we met the clothing design the clothing designer for it's worked for 24 years, and she said all those years he's been obsessed with two stories, the Swans and Hitchcock.
mm.
So I think I've got a real shot of it being made.
Well, I'm wishing and sending you all the good energy for this.
Thank.
Because I can't wait to see that on the screen as well. So this has been
Imagine what a
wonderful.
role would be for women, right?
Oh, it will.
Women
Well,
of a certain age.
that's what I was gonna say. These women are very empowered by having their lives um aired and actually having them at the center of the story,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
usually in society they were on the margins, but they were actually really pulling strings.
Right.
So how can everyone out there, find you, Laurence, get their hands on your books? If you want to like share your website or any ways to connect with
Yeah,
you.
my website is pretty perfunctory. Just not that much in on there. Just list the books and things. But they're available. They're in all the stores and Amazon.
Great, great. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And, I look forward to being in touch, and I'm excited for your Andy Warhol book, and I'm sure anything else that gets adapted in the near future for the screen.
Well, it shouldn't be this much fun, but it was.
It was, well, I'm glad it was fun.
It was fun.
Okay, thank you, Laurence.
Okay,
Have a good
thank you.
rest of your
Okay.
day. Okay, bye-bye.
LGBT stories are universal, but each one speaks to the individual heart and soul of the writer telling it. Do you have a story to tell? Or have you been moved by an LGBT book, film, painting, television show, or other form of media? Then the Gay and Lesbian Review wants to hear from you. The GNLR believes in bringing awareness to queer art and artists through reviews, commentary, and thought pieces in which the author relates their personal lives to a particular piece of art, a novel, a movie. In addition to the print magazine, the GNLR also publishes articles on its blog. So you can see all of this on glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Remember, you get 50% off your subscription of the GL Review magazine when you use the promo code ITBR50. That's 50% off your print or digital subscription when you use promo code ITBR50. To learn more about submitting an article for the GNLR, visit their writer's guidelines. The link is located at the bottom of their homepage. And if you have any questions, email Stephen Hemrick. That's STEPHEN dot HEMRICK at glreview.org. The GNLR and its readers can't wait to see what you have to say. So you've heard me gush about my friend Mandy Bengal's business called Mandy Made It. It is a cricket and crochet company. And as she says, especially for the kids at heart, which I think actually comes from Wizard of Oz. So I know that Mandy has made such beautiful items for Mary DePippi, for myself. I have a Hocus Pocus bed and breakfast sign that says Sanderson Bed and Breakfast in my living room. She's also made the poison apple from Snow White for me as a crocheted item. Recently, I gifted my boyfriend a crocheted ghost face bouquet that is just so gothically, hauntingly beautiful. She, I'm sure, can make you bunny rabbits, flowers, anything that you want for the spring season. She's making Pokemon items right now. So make sure you follow her at Mandy Made It, MANDEE Made It. And you'll see an example of all of the different items that she's been crafting right now. And because our Wicked Book Club is on April 7th, at 4 p.m., I definitely know that she could make an Alphaba and Glinda item for you. So I'm going to actually reach out to her because I'd love to have my hands on an Alphaba or Wicked Wizard of Oz Wicked collab item from Mandy Made It. And make sure you mention ITBR because she will gift you with a small free gift with your first order from Mandy Made It. Enjoy your crafts.